The sky above the alien kingdom of Zorath glowed with hues of violet and gold, a breathtaking sight that masked the cruelty lurking beneath its beauty. King Haijun sat on his throne, his sharp features illuminated by the soft light of floating orbs. He was a tall man with piercing eyes and an air of arrogance that made even his closest advisors tremble. Today, however, he wasn't focused on ruling or war. Instead, he leaned back in his seat, bored, as courtiers whispered among themselves, trying to entertain him. "Bring me something amusing," Haijun commanded suddenly, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. The room fell silent. His guards exchanged uneasy glances before hurrying off to obey their king's whimsical order. Moments later, they returned dragging a small, battered creature behind them. It was Heartless, a dragon-like being, no larger than a large dog, its once gleaming metallic scales now dull and scratched. One of its wings hung limply at its side, sparking faintly with broken circuits. Heartless had once been a proud warrior, revered for its strength and loyalty, but after sustaining injuries in battle, it had been cast aside, abandoned by those it had served faithfully. Now it lay trembling on the cold marble floor, its golden eyes dimmed with pain and exhaustion. The courtiers laughed nervously, unsure whether to pity the creature or mock it alongside their king. Haijun rose from his throne, circling Heartless with slow, deliberate steps. "What is this?" he asked, his tone mocking. "A broken toy? How fitting." He crouched down, tilting Heartless's head up with one finger. "Look at you. Once so mighty. I am now nothing more than scrap metal." The dragon let out a low growl, but there was no fire behind it. Only sadness. The king straightened, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "I have an idea," he announced, turning to his advisors. "Let's send this thing to Earth. Let's see how those primitive humans react when they find a dragon in their midst. Perhaps they'll destroy it, or perhaps they'll worship it. Either way, it will be entertaining." His words were met with nervous laughter, though none dared question him. Orders were given, and within hours, Heartless was loaded onto a sleek spacecraft programmed to deliver it to Earth. As the ship ascended into the stars, Heartless closed its eyes, resigned to whatever fate awaited it. On Earth, miles away from the glittering palaces of Zorath, Yunwu was just finishing her shift at the animal clinic. She was a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor, known throughout her neighborhood for her ability to heal even the most difficult cases. Her patients ranged from stray cats to exotic birds rescued from illegal trade. Tonight, however, she felt unusually restless, as if something important was waiting for her just beyond the horizon. As she walked home under the glow of streetlights, her attention was drawn to a strange object lying in the shadows near a dumpster. At first glance, it looked like a discarded toy, a metallic dragon figurine with intricate designs etched into its surface. But as she approached, she noticed something odd. Its chest moved ever so slightly, rising and falling as if it were breathing. Curiosity got the better of her, and she knelt down to examine it closer. That's when she saw the sparks flying from its damaged wing. It wasn't a toy, it was alive. Without hesitation, she scooped it up and carried it back to her clinic. Back in the safety of her workspace, Yunwu set the creature on the examination table. She examined it carefully, noting the advanced technology embedded in its body. Whatever it was far beyond anything she'd ever seen. Still, she treated it like any other injured animal, cleaning its wounds and patching up its broken parts with tools scavenged from her workshop. Hours passed, and as dawn broke, Yunwu finally leaned back in her chair, exhausted but satisfied. The dragon's wing was still non-functional, but the rest of its body seemed stable. She reached out cautiously, running her fingers along its smooth scales. To her surprise, the creature stirred, opening its golden eyes and fixing them on her. For a moment, neither moved. Then, slowly, the dragon lifted its head and let out a soft chirp. Yunwu smiled, feeling an unexpected warmth in her chest. "You're going to be okay," she whispered. "I promise." Unbeknownst to her, hidden cameras embedded in the dragon's body transmitted every detail of this encounter back to Zorath. King Heijun watched the footage with growing fascination, his initial amusement giving way to something else entirely. For the first time in his life, he found himself questioning what he saw. But for now, the story of Kalith and Yunwu was only beginning, and somewhere deep in the vastness of space, the seeds of change were quietly taking root. Yunwu woke early the next morning, and her mind still buzzing with questions about the strange creature she had found. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just an injured animal or even a machine. There was something alive in its golden eyes, something intelligent. Determined to uncover the truth, she returned to her clinic and began working on Kalith again. The dragon lay quietly on the examination table, watching her every move with cautious curiosity. Its damaged wing was the most pressing issue, but Yunwu quickly realized that repairing it wouldn't be easy. The technology embedded in its body was unlike anything she'd ever seen, delicate circuits intertwined with organic tissue, as if it were part living being and part advanced machinery. Yet, despite the complexity, she refused to give up. Her hands moved steadily, guided by years of experience and an unshakable determination to help. As the days passed, Yunwu noticed small changes in Kalith's behavior. At first, it had been wary of her touch, flinching whenever she came too close. But now, it seemed to relax in her presence, even leaning into her hand when she stroked its metallic scales. Occasionally, it would let out soft chirps or hums, almost like it was trying to communicate. Though she didn't understand its language, Yunwu felt a connection forming between them, a bond built on trust and care. One evening, after hours of painstaking work, Yunwu finally managed to restore partial function to Kalith's wing. It wasn't perfect, but the faint glow of energy running through the repaired circuits gave her hope. She stepped back, wiping sweat from her brow, and smiled at the dragon. "There," she said softly. "That should do it for now." Kalith tilted its head, studying her with those piercing golden eyes. Then, to her astonishment, it stretched out its newly repaired wing and flapped it gently, sending a warm breeze across the room. For a moment they simply stared at each other, human and dragon, two beings from vastly different worlds brought together by chance. Unknown to Yunwu, King Heijun continued to watch their interactions through the hidden cameras inside Kalith's body. What he saw both fascinated and unsettled him. He had expected the human to react with fear or disgust, perhaps even destroying the dragon out of ignorance. Instead, she treated it with kindness and patience, qualities he rarely encountered in his own kingdom. Heijun paced restlessly in his throne room, his thoughts consumed by what he had witnessed. Why did this human care so much? Why did she go to such lengths to repair something that clearly wasn't hers? These questions gnawed at him, stirring emotions he had long suppressed. Compassion, empathy. These were weaknesses in his world, traits he had been taught to despise, and yet here was a mere human displaying them without hesitation. His advisors noticed his distraction and grew uneasy. "Your Majesty," one of them ventured cautiously, "is everything all right?" Heijun stopped pacing and turned to face them, his expression unreadable. "Send scouts to Earth," he ordered abruptly. "I want updates on the situation, regular reports." His tone left no room for argument, and the advisors hurried to obey. Back on Earth, Yunwu's life began to change in subtle ways. But strange occurrences started happening around her clinic. Electrical surges that caused lights to flicker, unexplained noises in the dead of night, and shadowy figures lurking just outside her window. At first, she dismissed these incidents as coincidences or products of her overactive imagination, but as they became more frequent, she couldn't ignore them any longer. One night, while reviewing her notes on Caliph, she heard a loud crash from the front of the clinic. Startled, she grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made her way to investigate. The source of the noise turned out to be a shattered window, shards of glass scattered across the floor. Near the broken pane, she found a small device blinking faintly with red light. It looked alien, its design sleek and unfamiliar. Her heart raced as she picked it up, examining it closely. Or whatever it was, it hadn't been there before. She glanced at Caliph, who was watching her intently from its perch on the examination table. "Do you know what this is?" she asked, holding up the device. The dragon let out a low growl, its golden eyes narrowing. Before she could think further, the device suddenly activated, projecting holographic images into the air. Scenes unfolded before her, a planet bathed in violet light, armies of dragons locked in battle, and a towering figure laughing cruelly atop a mountain of rubble. Yunwu recognized the figure immediately. It was King Heijun, though she didn't know his name yet. His laughter echoed through the room, sending chills down her spine. When the projection ended, Yunwu stood frozen, her mind racing. And she now understood that Caliph wasn't just some abandoned pet or experiment. It was a sentient being from another world, caught in a conflict far beyond her comprehension. And somehow, she had become part of that story. Determined to learn more, Yunwu decided to seek answers elsewhere. She remembered hearing about Ji-un, a retired xenobiologist who lived on the outskirts of town. Though Ji-un had disappeared from public life years ago, rumors suggested she possessed extensive knowledge of alien species. Hoping against hope, Yunwu packed a bag with supplies and set off to find her. The journey took longer than expected, but eventually she arrived at Ji-un's secluded home, a modest cabin surrounded by dense woods. After knocking on the door, she was greeted by an elderly woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Who are you? And what do you want?" Ji-un asked bluntly. "My name is Yunwu," she replied, holding out the device she had found. "I need your help. This creature appeared in my clinic, and I think it's from another planet. I don't know what to do." Ji-un studied the device for a moment before ushering Yunwu inside. Once seated, she explained that Caliph belonged to a race of sentient dragons enslaved by their rulers. "They're warriors," Ji-un said grimly. "But they're also victims. Their leaders use them until they break, then discard them without a second thought." Yunwu listened in silence, her heart heavy with the weight of what she was learning. When Ji-un finished, she added a warning. "If you keep that dragon, you'll put yourself in danger. Powerful forces will come looking for it. They won't hesitate to harm you." Despite the risks, Yunwu shook her head firmly. "I can't abandon it," she said. "It trusted me when it had no reason to. I won't turn my back on it now." Ji-un regarded her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "Very well," she said, "but be careful. You're playing a dangerous game." That night, as Yunwu returned home, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew she couldn't face them alone. Caliph needed her, and she vowed to protect it no matter what. Little did she know, the true test of her courage was only beginning. The days that followed Yunwu's meeting with Ji-un were filled with tension and uncertainty. Armed with new knowledge about Caliph's origins, she returned to her clinic more determined than ever to protect the dragon. But the strange occurrences around her home only grew worse. Lights flickered unpredictably, equipment malfunctioned without explanation, and shadowy figures seemed to linger just beyond her line of sight. It was as if invisible eyes were watching her every move. Kalith, too, seemed uneasy. The dragon stayed close to Yunwu, its golden eyes constantly scanning the room for signs of danger. Occasionally, it would let out low growls or emit faint sparks from its damaged wing, as if preparing itself for battle. Yunwu tried to reassure it, speaking softly and stroking its metallic scales, but even she couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease in the air. One evening, while working late in the clinic, Yunwu heard a soft hum coming from Kalith. She turned to see the dragon staring at her intently, on its body glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. Before she could react, the glow intensified, and holographic images began to project into the room once again. This time, however, the scenes were different, more personal, more intimate. Yunwu watched as fragments of Kalith's past unfolded before her. She saw the dragon soaring through alien skies, its wings strong and graceful, leading armies into battle. She saw moments of camaraderie with fellow warriors, laughter shared under violet suns. And then she saw betrayal, a sudden ambush, allies turning against Kalith, leaving it wounded and abandoned on a barren battlefield. The final image was of King Heijun, standing atop a hill, laughing cruelly as Kalith lay broken below. Tears welled up in Yunwu's eyes as the projection faded, and she understood now why Kalith had been so wary when she first found it. It wasn't just injured, it was traumatized, betrayed by those it had trusted most. Her heart ached for the creature, and she vowed silently to do everything in her power to help it heal, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Unknown to Yunwu, King Heijun continued to observe her through the hidden cameras inside Kalith's body. What he saw during this latest transmission left him shaken. He had always known Kalith as a tool, a weapon to be used and discarded. But seeing the dragon's memories, the pain, the betrayal, the loneliness, forced him to confront a truth he had long ignored: his own cruelty. For the first time in his life, Heijun felt a pang of guilt. He had sent Kalith to Earth as a joke, expecting the humans to destroy or mistreat it. Instead, he had witnessed something extraordinary, a human showing compassion and kindness to a creature from another world. It was a concept foreign to him, one that challenged everything he believed about power and control. His advisors noticed the change in him and grew increasingly alarmed. "Your Majesty," one of them said cautiously, "we must retrieve the dragon immediately. Its presence on Earth poses a threat to our security." Heijun hesitated, his mind torn between duty and doubt. Finally, he nodded. "Prepare a team," he ordered. "We leave for Earth at dawn." Meanwhile, Yunwu decided to take matters into her own hands. If powerful forces were coming for Kalith, she needed to be ready. She spent the night fortifying her clinic, boarding up windows and setting traps in case intruders tried to break in. She also worked tirelessly to repair Kalith's wing, knowing that its ability to defend itself might mean the difference between life and death. As dawn approached, Yunwu sat beside Kalith, exhaustion etched onto her face. The dragon looked at her with gratitude in its golden eyes, as if it understood the lengths she was going to protect it. She reached out and gently patted its head. "We'll get through this," she whispered. "Together." Her words were put to the test sooner than expected. Just as the first rays of sunlight peeked over the horizon, a loud crash echoed through the clinic. Yunwu sprang to her feet, heart pounding, as the front door burst open. A group of armored figures stormed inside, their weapons drawn and aimed directly at her and Kalith. "Step away from the dragon," one of them commanded, and his voice cold and mechanical. Yunwu stood her ground, shielding Kalith with her body. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice trembling but defiant. "What do you want?" Before the intruders could respond, another figure entered the room, a tall man with piercing eyes and an air of authority. It was King Haijun himself. He stepped forward, his gaze locking onto Yunwu. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, finally, he broke the silence. "You've done well," he said, his tone unreadable. "Better than I expected." Yunwu glared at him, her fear giving way to anger. "Is this your idea of entertainment, sending a wounded creature to die?" Haijun flinched, her words hitting him harder than he anticipated. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Kalith let out a deafening roar, its body glowing with energy. Sparks flew from its repaired wing as it stepped protectively in front of Yunwu, ready to fight. The tension in the room was palpable, weapons were raised, and for a moment it seemed like violence was inevitable. But then, unexpectedly, Haijun raised a hand, signaling his soldiers to stand down. "No," he said firmly, "we're not here to fight." Yunwu stared at him, confused, but unwilling to lower her guard. "Then why are you here?" Haijun hesitated, his expression conflicted. Finally, he sighed and took a step closer. "I came to retrieve the dragon," he admitted, "but now, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do." His words stunned everyone in the room, including Yunwu. For the first time, she saw vulnerability in the king's eyes, a flicker of humanity beneath his armor of arrogance. It was a small sign, but enough to give her hope. As the standoff continued, Yunwu realized that this was more than just a battle for Kalith's freedom. It was a chance to show Haijun, and perhaps the entire alien kingdom, that mercy and compassion were not weaknesses, but strengths. With renewed determination, she stepped forward, placing herself between the king and the dragon. "If you want to take Kalith," she said, her voice steady, "you'll have to go through me first." Her courage caught Haijun off guard. He studied her for a long moment, his mind racing with conflicting thoughts. In the end, he made a decision, one that would change the course of his reign forever. The room was tense, the air thick with unspoken threats and uncertainty. King Haijun stood frozen, his hand still raised in a gesture of restraint as he stared at Yunwu. Her defiance had thrown him off balance, forcing him to confront emotions he had spent years suppressing. For the first time in his life, he found himself questioning the very foundation of his rule, power built on fear and cruelty. Yunwu didn't waver. She stood tall, her eyes locked onto the king's, refusing to back down. Behind her, Kalith growled softly, its body glowing faintly with energy. The dragon was ready to fight, but Yunwu knew that violence wasn't the answer. If she wanted to protect Kalith and perhaps inspire change, she needed to reach Haijun in a way no one else ever had. "You think you're powerful because you can hurt others," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But true strength comes from kindness, from helping those who can't help themselves. Look at Kalith. It trusted me when it had no reason to. And now, as it's stronger because of it." Her words struck a chord deep within Haijun. He lowered his gaze, his mind racing with memories of his own past, the betrayals, the sacrifices, the countless lives crushed under his command. For a fleeting moment, he saw himself not as a king, but as a man burdened by choices he could never take back. Before he could respond, one of his soldiers stepped forward, his weapon aimed directly at Yunwu. "Your Majesty, we cannot allow this human to interfere further," the soldier said, his tone cold and unwavering. "We must act now." Haijun hesitated, torn between duty and doubt. Then, with a sharp wave of his hand, he silenced the soldier. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice carrying an authority that brooked no argument. His soldiers exchanged uneasy glances but obeyed, lowering their weapons reluctantly. Then Yunwu let out a shaky breath, though she remained alert. She knew the danger wasn't over yet. Still, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was more to Haijun than met the eye. As the standoff eased, Kalith took a step forward, positioning itself between Yunwu and the king. Its golden eyes burned with determination, and its damaged wing crackled with energy. Though it was still injured, it refused to back down. Slowly, it extended its claws, ready to defend its new friend at any cost. Haijun watched the dragon closely, his expression unreadable. Memories of Kalith's past flashed through his mind, the battles it had fought, the loyalty it had shown, and the betrayal that had left it broken. He realized now that sending it to Earth hadn't been a harmless prank, and it had been an act of callous disregard for a creature that had once served him faithfully. "I see now," Haijun said quietly, almost to himself. "You are more than just a tool. You are a warrior, deserving of respect." He turned to Yunwu, his piercing eyes softening slightly. "And you have shown me something I thought impossible. Compassion without weakness." Yunwu didn't respond immediately. She studied him carefully, searching for any sign of deception. Finally, she nodded slowly. "If you truly mean what you say, prove it. Let Kalith stay here, where it's safe, where it's cared for." Haijun clenched his fists, torn between his instincts as a ruler and the newfound understanding blooming within him. After a long pause, he sighed deeply. "Very well," he said. "Kalith may remain here, for now. I but know this. If my kingdom learns of my decision, there will be consequences." His words sent a chill through the room, but Yunwu felt a surge of relief. She glanced at Kalith, who let out a soft chirp, its body relaxing slightly. The immediate threat had passed, but they all knew the battle was far from over. That night, after Haijun and his soldiers departed, Yunwu sat beside Kalith, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. She had faced down an alien king and lived to tell the tale, but the victory felt bittersweet. Kalith's safety was temporary at best, and she knew that protecting it would require more than courage. It would take allies. Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden flash of light outside the clinic. Startled, she rushed to the window and peered out into the darkness. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. A group of figures descending from the sky, their forms shimmering with an otherworldly glow. They weren't human, nor did they resemble the soldiers who had accompanied Haijun earlier. These beings radiated power and grace, their presence both awe-inspiring and intimidating. One of them stepped forward, addressing Yunwu in a language she didn't understand. To her surprise, Kalith responded, letting out a series of chirps and hums. The figure nodded, then turned its gaze toward Yunwu. Through gestures and expressions, it conveyed a message. They were Kalith's people, come to retrieve their lost comrade. Yunwu felt a pang of sadness at the thought of parting with Kalith, but she knew it was the right thing to do. The dragon belonged with its own kind, where it could heal and rebuild. Still, she couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Over the weeks, Kalith had become more than just a patient. It had become a friend. As the figures prepared to leave, one of them approached Yunwu, holding out a small crystalline shard. It pulsed with a warm, golden light, and when Yunwu touched it, she felt a wave of energy course through her. She looked up, confused, but the being simply smiled before turning away. Kalith lingered for a moment longer, its golden eyes filled with gratitude. Then, with a final chirp, it joined its companions, ascending into the night sky. Yunwu watched until they disappeared among the stars, tears streaming down her face. Unbeknownst to her, King Haijun observed the scene from afar, hidden in the shadows. He had returned to ensure Kalith's departure went smoothly, but what he witnessed left him deeply moved. Yunwu's selflessness, her willingness to let go despite her attachment, reinforced everything he had begun to question about his own values. The days that followed Kalith's departure were quiet, almost unnervingly so. Yunwoo returned to her routine at the clinic, tending to injured animals and helping those in need. But despite her efforts to stay busy, she couldn't shake the emptiness that lingered in her heart. Kalith had been more than just a patient. It had been a companion, a reminder of the extraordinary connection that could exist between two beings from completely different worlds. Still, life went on. The strange occurrences around her home ceased, and the shadowy figures that had once watched her vanished without a trace. It was as if the events of the past weeks had never happened, except for the small crystalline shard Kalith's people had left behind. Yunwoo kept it close, its warm glow a comforting reminder of the bond she had shared with the dragon. Meanwhile, on the distant planet of Zorath, King Heijun struggled to reconcile the changes within himself. His encounter with Unwoo had planted seeds of doubt in his mind, challenging everything he believed about power, leadership, and compassion. For days, he secluded himself in his throne room, refusing to see anyone as he wrestled with his thoughts. His advisors grew increasingly uneasy. "Your Majesty," one of them ventured cautiously, "the council grows restless. They demand answers." Heijun turned to face them, his expression unreadable. "Answers to what?" he asked sharply. To why I spared a broken dragon. To why I allowed a human to teach me something I should have known all along." The advisors exchanged nervous glances but said nothing. They had never seen their king like this. Vulnerable, uncertain, almost human. Finally, Heijun stood, his decision made. "Summon the council," he ordered. "It's time they learned the truth." When the council gathered, they expected another display of arrogance, another declaration of dominance. What they received instead was something entirely unexpected. Heijun addressed them not as a ruler, but as a man seeking redemption. "For too long," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "we have ruled through fear and cruelty. We have discarded those who served us faithfully, treating them as tools rather than living beings." But no more. The council members stared at him in stunned silence. Some looked skeptical, others outraged. But Heijun pressed on, undeterred. He recounted his experiences on Earth, the courage of a single human woman, the loyalty of a wounded dragon, and the lessons they had taught him about mercy and understanding. "This is not weakness," he declared, his tone firm. "This is strength. True strength comes not from domination, but from compassion. From now on, we will rebuild our kingdom, not on the backs of the broken, but through unity and respect." His words sparked heated debates among the council, but Heijun refused to back down. Slowly, grudgingly, some began to see the wisdom in his vision. Change would not come easily, but it had begun. Back on Earth, Yunwoo continued her work, unaware of the ripple effects her actions had caused across the galaxy. One evening, as she sat alone in her clinic, she felt a familiar warmth emanating from the crystalline shard. She picked it up, holding it close, and closed her eyes. In that moment, she saw flashes of Kalith's new life, a world bathed in golden light, where dragons soared freely under twin suns. She saw Kalith standing tall, its wing fully healed, surrounded by others of its kind. And she saw glimpses of Heijun, walking among his people, speaking of peace and reform. When the vision faded, Yunwoo opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know how or why, but she understood that her actions had sparked something greater than she could have imagined. A single act of kindness had ignited change far beyond her wildest dreams. Weeks later, as she walked home under the glow of streetlights, Yunwoo felt a sense of peace settle over her. Though Kalith was gone, its presence remained etched in her heart, a testament to the power of compassion and trust. She carried the crystalline shard with her always, a symbol of the bond they had shared. And somewhere deep in the vastness of space, Kayleith looked up at the stars, knowing that its journey had touched lives in ways it could never have foreseen. The alien king, too, gazed at the heavens, inspired by the humanity he had witnessed on a distant blue planet. Though their paths had diverged, their stories remained intertwined, a testament to the idea that even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple across the universe, bridging worlds and changing hearts.